Are we on? All right. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's City of Tumwater Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, February 11th, 2025 at 7 p.m. And our meeting is called to order. I'll do our roll call of commissioners. Commissioner Edwards. Here. Commissioner Kirkpatrick.
Here.
Commissioner Kotek, we haven't heard from. Commissioner Staff.
Here.
Great, and me, Commissioner Robbins. Great, we have a quorum and we can go. Are there any changes to our agenda from anybody tonight? All right, let's keep moving then. Next thing is that we will need to take an action to cancel our regular February 25th commission meeting so that we will meet earlier in the evening for a joint meeting with City Council and a field trip on the transportation plan. I think it's a field trip. Mm-hmm. Okay. So is there a motion on that?
Moved.
Moved. And like Commissioner Edwards seconding to cancel our regular February 25th meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Any opposed? Great. Motion passes. We're canceled at our regular, but we'll meet earlier at 5 for the joint meeting. Do any of the commissioners have reports you'd like to make of things you've noticed, been out and doing, anything like that? Anything here. All right. Brad, Deputy Director's report.
Couple things. We've started interviews for associate planner position in the current planning group. We've got 3 good candidates, so I'm hoping we'll have a person starting shortly. That's important because that will mean that Alex will be able to devote a little more time to helping us with the comprehensive plan update, as well as making the transition to our new permitting system. We are also working with the executive office and Brittany and setting up interviews with some candidates for the planning commission. So I'll let you know on what that where that is and the status. I believe I had emailed each of the commissioners letting them know that there's an ordinance being considered to be brought to the council about reducing the size of the planning commission, keeping the same one person in the UGA if there's somebody available, that kind of thing. And my understanding is they'll probably bring that forward. I haven't been told when, but when I do, I'll let you know.
That would reduce us from 9 to
7.
7.
Just arbitrary? Is there a reason for it?
We've had discussions, I know, with the executive about being able to fill positions and whether or not we truly needed 9 versus 7. And that's really sort of the genesis of this. So.
Anything else?
That should be it.
Good. Let me go to public comment. Is anyone here or online that wishes to address the Planning Commission?
I have nobody online, and we didn't receive any public comments ahead of the meeting.
Well, let's move to our 8th order of business, our food system plan update. We talked a little bit about this before, but let's get going. Brad, do you want to start off, or do you?
I'll let Dana.
Okay. So, yeah, the food system plan was a council item that they requested staff to look into, and so staff worked on a request for proposals and then contracted with Rebecca Potesnik, who is here tonight. And Rebecca is here to provide us with an update. She's been working since August 2024, trying to gather information. She's reviewed the plans from other areas, other counties, and also some of our internal plans to see what ordinances and policy we already have in place and what really can shift in the food systems plan and what we have jurisdiction over. But then she's also done a really thorough look at the stakeholders and the community and the community members who are involved with the food system, and has really balanced, and I think I'll let her discuss a little bit more about how she was able to do that, but really balancing from what sectors they're from and what types of contacts she's made contact with. And I think in summary, the biggest thing we've learned is that as you contact more people, you get more contacts. And so just really keeping that scope to a manageable level for the contract that we have with Rebecca has been, you know, something we've worked around and now have just produced a survey. And the survey is, just was sent out today and already has six respondents. So, yeah, anyway, Rebecca, would you like to introduce yourself and
Hi.
say a little more?
Hello. First, it feels funny, is it okay to just, when people come like this, you would, I'm not sure.
It's
like,
kind of
how
tough. You do your best.
to-
We'll critique you afterwards.
Okay, great.
That's right.
Well, I regret that we, didn't have a chance to connect at a meeting that I was scheduled for. There were just technological issues. And I do think that there were materials provided to you all, and so I didn't hear any, I got no feedback. So I was assuming that y'all felt like I was on a good trajectory, and I kept moving along on that trajectory. And as Dana said, is it Dana?
All right. Whatever,
No, what is it? How do you pronounce it? Dana.
however you say banana.
I've been spending a bunch of time, meeting with people individually, doing interviews, conversations, and getting their input, and it's been a very rich experience, and I feel like I could probably do that for like a year, you know. There's so many people involved in the food system, and as Dana said, you know, I have to make some parameters for myself, right? Because the scope of the project, it has constraints of time and money, and so I'm trying to do a good overview and make some connections into various aspects without getting kind of lost in all the people. And so one element was, I have two more people that I want to talk to in person, but then trying to wrap that up unless there's some very specific questions that come up or very specific information I need. But a survey went out today, and the survey only has gone out, it's, again, a very targeted survey, and so there were, I believe, 69 people on that survey. So it's not getting broadcast widely, and in part, the survey itself, it's not just like a quick, like, multiple choice. There's 15 questions on there. You know, there's 2 that are very easy, like what's your role and what's your title, but the rest are essentially open-ended, kind of like essay questions if people are willing. And so I wanted to send it out to very thoughtfully to people that I thought might take the time to actually provide that level of input. And so I'm very excited that people are taking the time to reply. And in fact, one person put the comment, I think the verb they used was thrilled. They were thrilled to see that the survey was going out. And I will also say that people I've spoken with, many people have expressed a lot of appreciation that the city of Tumwater is doing this, and it's standing out in our region because nobody else has taken this effort on a municipal level. So I'm assuming that you all have had a chance over these months to look a bit at what I'm up to, and so I don't have a big presentation to give. What I was hoping was that we could be in some conversation and that you could ask questions, and then also give me input and the same sorts of things that I've been asking when I've been having those conversations, that you also could provide me with some of your perspectives from the, you know, living in the community and then the roles that you have serving as planning commissioners. But again, if people, I also understand that you're also busy people with full lives, and if you don't feel fully briefed on what I've been up to, I'm happy to go into more detail on the scope of the project and the overall process.
let me just pause right there and, and check to make sure, folks, do you need a little more information, or are you? Looks like go ahead.
I just say that I'm impressed, with the diversity of the groups that you're, talking to. Obviously, folks on the planning commission know several of the people in this list, so we know you at least pick some of them
Yeah.
very carefully, and I imagine the rest of them are as, knowledgeable as the ones that we know. This is something that, has to be done, and, we appreciate, you taking the load on.
Absolutely. It's been, like I said, it's been, a very interesting project for me. And it is not too late, if there are people that you feel like you would really like me to talk to or send the survey to, I'm certainly happy to, add them to my list. I feel like I was given, part of what was given in the proposal was the 3 areas of the city really wanting to look at, food security, food waste, and processors and producers. So I used those as my, guide in trying to make sure I'm hitting all those areas. I will say I've probably spent more time with food security than, say, processors and producers, although I have specifically tried to connect with people that run businesses in Tumwater to talk to them about their experiences in their, business activities.
I would say move on then.
Okay. Well, and so the questions that I've been asking folks, I mean, I guess I don't know enough about what happened before, what kinds of conversations the commissioners had leading up to wanting to have this plan done. And so I'd love to hear from you all if there are specific things that you're hoping to get addressed. And that might be jumping, the gun slightly in the sense that right now what this kind of information gathering phase I'm in is to be able to have a snapshot of like, here's an assessment of where we are now. And then we'll take that and move to the next phase of like, where do you all want to get to and what are the goals and strategies to get there? But if we tonight talk more about goals and strategies, that's okay as well. And if we want to talk more about sort of the state of the community as you see it, that's more where my brain has been.
Great. Any thoughts from commissioners so far? Mr. Kirkpatrick.
I think it says it in here is what we're looking for, things that, the city can do.
Yes.
So there are a million things.
Yes.
That the community can do, and there are lots of things the community is already doing. And what we're looking for is to find out where there are also residents of the city of Tumwater and come up with some suggestions on what the city could do to overcome those problems.
And have you, in your role as a commissioner, have you heard from constituents that are bringing issues to you?
Not constituents,
Okay.
When I go down and pack boxes at the food bank, I hear a lot of things.
Yes.
So, I think most of us firsthand have come in line with what is actually going on. Most of it we see taking place physically at, in Olympia, but that's not an Olympia food bank, that's the Thurston County Food Bank, and we participate in that, both on a volunteer basis and financially as a city. So, there's a lot more to this than just the food bank.
Yes. And when you said you pack boxes, do you do that at the downtown Olympia location?
Right.
Yeah.
Although I've been to the warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what we're looking for. We're looking for things that we can do that we're not doing now, that specifically need to help the community that's living or anticipates living in this.
Mhm. Thank you. I would, online, are there comments on this question?
It's actually kind of interesting because my wife just had a friend of hers come and she's wanting to start a nonprofit for raising money for individuals in school to help pay for food and to make sure that they're secure in their food needs. So she's starting up a cookie business to sell cookies to raise money to do that. So I think what you're doing and everything on here is really great. I definitely think there's a need for it. So that's something that I just heard of literally 3 days ago, where she was dropping off cookies to taste test to see how they were to sell. So I think it's all good stuff. I just actually had one right before this meeting. So
If you need me to taste any of the cookies as part of my food system work, they are food. Cookies are food, and I do.
and they are all. I think she said that they're the top 7 allergies are not in these cookies, so they're all allergy free. So I'd be happy to talk to her and see if I can get a batch for next time.
Great.
And that would be awesome. And I think I would just kind of echo what has been said. You know, just thank you so much for all the work that you're doing on this. I think that there is a very clear need for this work to be done, and it will be interesting moving forward. I'm a very kind of like goal-oriented person, right? And so for me, it's really interesting to kind of see where we are and then where we want to go. And then like Commissioner Kirkpatrick's comments, like how specifically the Planning Commission can be helpful in that, right? Like if there are specific things in our role that we can do to help kind of reach some of those goals. I think we would love to know that. But I just think again, it's really fascinating stuff and a great need. So I find it very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things that I know that I first started being interested in, but it's expanded, is the whole kind of urban agriculture thing, and especially fairly small scale, but still very important, and not necessarily commodity or even with money exchange kind of thing. You know, maybe a little more goods exchange kind of a thing rather than money changing hands. But I am very interested in that whole thing. But I also want to say that the food systems plan seems to me like so many kinds of things, a really good opportunity to help connect some of the other goals the city has. For example, around economic development, small businesses would be where not just the people who farm or garden, but the people who use those products to produce other goods that are in our little ecosystem of food. And then that helps create, you know, whatever other kinds of small businesses to promote. It's an opportunity to promote businesses that are getting started by maybe folks who don't otherwise have good access to in for a business kind of a thing. So I think there's just a lot of opportunity for connectivity to other goals.
Yes.
I also want to kind of build on something that Commissioner Kirkpatrick said, is finding things new to do, you know, identify a problem, figure out what needs to happen to fix it or to move it along or solve it. But also, if something's working really well, let's do more. You know, let's keep that going. Let's sustain it. And particularly if things get, you know, if we try something for a while and it might have worked out, but we lose steam because there's another shiny new object, that doesn't promote some of the stability in that system that people, I think, need and value. So those kinds of things, I think, are really important there. And just thinking about the kind of the role that the city has in this kind of thing, I kind of think about kind of creating that atmosphere, that the conditions, if you will, that allow people to figure out how to get things done, grow things, make things, what have you. So, a big part of it is going to be this plan that helps identify what are some of the issues people are facing, what are some of the kinds of ideas people have for solving those issues, what kinds of speed bumps, if you will, are people hitting that, somehow the city can fix, somehow they can, smooth that over. Anyway, kind of create this environment where all this other creativity and effort can advance, if
I
you will.
appreciate that you said, highlight what is going well, so those things keep doing
Yeah.
those things.
Because I think we
not-
are, I think we are doing some.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I worked, as the operations director at Grub for 8 years, and during my time there, I always appreciated the city of Tumwater was one of the local municipalities that very consistently, even though it wasn't many gardens, every year would put some money towards making sure some Tumwater residents got backyard gardens built at their homes.
Mhm.
And like that to me is an example of,
Yeah.
keep doing that,
That's a perfect kind of a thing, to help people get even a small little way to grow something, even if it's one plant that
Mhm.
connects them, grounds them. But they're not going to sell their,
Right.
their tiny little ounce of thyme leaves or whatever, But they're still part of the food network that we have. So helping people kind of connect to that, starting, even from little kids, right on up to folks maybe in, say senior housing or things like that, where they might not otherwise have access to a little bit of space for that kind of thing. It does take some space. Too bad we don't have sunshine. Can you deliver some sunshine to our climate here?
Well, and then the other thing that you brought up, and that when I was saying sort of the parameters I'm giving myself of not talking to too many people and keeping it a manageable scale, is the part about it needs to be things that the city of Tumwater has the ability to actually do. So there are in conversations things that come up, right, where it's yes, we can all agree that that's a problem, but it's beyond the scope
Right.
of what can get addressed here. So I think that's another thing just to prepare you for, right, is that as I actually have more written materials
Mhm.
to document, that there's going to be things that are not going to be, issues that are not going to show up in the plan because they're outside of the scope of what you all have control over.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I neglected, because I was so excited to start talking, of when we started. I want to be thoughtful of your time to know how,
Sure. I think you got going probably about just over 10 minutes ago.
Okay, great, thanks.
Was there a question?
Just more of a comment. So, because what was just said really made me think too about how good doing this is right now and how helpful, even if it is that there are some things that may be out of the scope for what we can actually do, that we document those, because I think it would help people understand why we're doing things the way that we are, right? Because like we had talked about, there are so many things that this touches and so many decisions that, the city has to make in terms of housing versus gardens versus this versus that. And just really, helping people understand the why behind the reasoning for what we're doing is always really beneficial. So the more that they can see that, yeah, even if we couldn't necessarily do that, that we talked about that and we thought about that, and it wasn't just pushed to the wayside, that it really was actually considered and considered in a way that lets people know that they were heard, I think is always very beneficial.
Good point, thank you.
Mhm.
I just need to jot that down real quick. Go ahead. No, were you gonna ask?
No, I was just gonna,
Well, I was wondering, if, and so you have had a chance to look at the list of people that I've spoken with and that are on the survey? And, at this point in time, you don't have additional, when I met with the General Government Committee, there were a few people that got brought up that I, added to my list. And I just want to make sure that there's, you feel like I've got a good scope, breadth. It was interesting too, I feel like in what came to me, about the goals of this plan, food waste, and then in talking, depending on who you're talking to, one person's food waste is another person's food rescue. And so, that was just an interesting thing. Depending on who you're talking to, what one man's trash is another man's treasure, as they say. Have you observed any innovations that you have come across that are not happening in this community, but you've seen in other communities related to the food system?
maybe I have seen it in this community, and I don't know how it would work exactly, but in other places, it's, I have seen, and I don't really know how it works or anything, but I've just seen, kind of pop-up vendors of produce.
Yes.
Somebody on a street corner or whatever.
Right, like pop-up farm stands, sort of.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that happens too much here. I did see one person the other day out on Little Rock Road, but I don't know. Is that I don't know how that kind of thing works, or but it's some food getting into our system some way or other.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Laws around that kind of thing or not, but that would be, if there are, we need to examine, what, do they help, do they hinder?
Right. Oh, I also wanted to ask, I'm also curious, in some of the work that I've been doing, and there's been some look back over time, and it feels like, and again, because our food system, we can't just look at, right, the city of Tumwater, because we're not like a self-sustaining,
Mm-hmm.
and so if we're looking more regionally, and it feels like there were some more efforts done at a regional level and collaboration, at least at the county level in years past, that I'm seeing some efforts that had been started that have not continued. And I'm curious if any of you can speak to that from your experiences, either about, those collaborations, what went well or what happened, or if there are things going on now that you're involved in that I'm in a more regional way that I'm not aware of.
I'm not aware of any.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
things that cross my mind are things that the city has already become involved in, designating LeMay as the pickup for our waste. A lot of cities don't do that. A lot of cities take it on themselves to do it, which obviously means that it doesn't work very well. So by bringing a corporation in to do it that knows how to do it right, being able to go out and put food waste in my yard waste barrel, to me, is the simplest thing in the world. And I know that LeMay is using it, probably coming right back to us and being sold at Home Depot for soil. So it's a beautiful process that the city has managed to do that a whole lot of cities don't do any recycling at all. process. So, I've been impressed with, the level of support, that Tumwater has provided. Got, huge increase in population expected. So what I'm looking forward to is that your study is gonna give us things that we can do. They're gonna take care of that huge increase in population, so that we will become the city of the size that needs to do that themselves, that can't rely on a neighbor to do it for us. Pretty much, most of this area we're doing now, we're paying money for services, that, provide these things.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would kind of just echo on to that myself and just say, yeah, the education I think that people have in this area around things like yard wasting or compost or like local farmers markets and things like that is really impressive from some of the other places that I've been. I was just in a place recently where, yeah, they didn't even have like a recycling program. Like you could not recycle things. Like that was just not even an option. So the fact that people can compost or go to Starbucks and get coffee grinds for their flower beds, or the fact that Tumwater does have, I mean, it's a small one, but they do have a farmers market, in the summer that people can go to, or the fact that even Olympia has like the larger farmers market are things that you don't see anywhere. And so I think that that already kind of puts us in a really good position compared to some of the other places.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards, have you lived in the community for a long time, or have you had an opportunity to live in many other communities?
I have lived in the Tumwater area since 2021 and the Olympia area since I was born.
Yeah, so a long time, yeah. I'm trying to remember, and I don't know if I have it handy. Do either of you know offhand the next time I will be attending this meeting?
Not off,
Liz, I don't think I brought that with me.
right, Rebecca. I don't know that we have that scheduled, do we? I have the little agenda item, or, I love the schedule. I really like this thing, So, it looks like April 8th.
Okay.
Okay. Keep these handy.
Nice. And I anticipate by that time having the assessment written up.
Hey, I just want to make an announcement that we're losing audio.
Yeah, thank you. I just left and rejoined the meeting because I was having trouble too.
Everyone online
Same.
can't hear. Yeah, we can't hear. Yeah, I tried to leave the meeting and log back on, and I was like, okay, it's not just me, because I saw you guys log off too.
Not working.
Oh,
Well, I'm glad they can hear us at least.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, we hear. Yeah, we can hear now.
Yahoo, Yahoo.
I'm so
All
sorry.
right. We're not exactly sure what happened, but that was pretty exciting.
Verse 6 was the magic.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Stars there.
Where's it? Okay, where we left off was, thinking about when we will next take up, I don't know if you have any other questions for us after this, but we will revisit the food safety plan in another couple of months in April, at which time we'll have a bit of a report.
Right.
And so, we have a chance, I guess, I don't know how long the survey is out for, but, we have a chance, I guess, in the interim, if we need to, we can funnel things through Dana to you to bring out anything, but it sounds like you are on a path to keep this rolling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Did anybody have any online, did anybody have any questions of things you think you might have missed? We saw the arm waving pretty fast, but, okay. All right. Okay. With that, did you have any more questions?
Yeah, and I would just say, I would just encourage you all, if something does, you know, come to you at a later time, to please, send me your thoughts. I would very much appreciate, whatever kinds of aha moments or questions or things that you feel like need to, you know,
Sure.
be looked at. Yeah, super.
Very good.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
yes.
And because you were early in the meeting, you are more than invited to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you don't have to.
Okay,
You can, go ahead and have a great evening if you'd like.
okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Is it okay
being
just to slip out when I
Sure.
Yep.
stay for a little and then?
Yeah.
You can do whatever
Okay,
you
great.
like.
Thank you very much.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. A lot of good work.
You never know what other exciting things you'll see.
Exactly, that's just like, I don't, you know.
Be more technical wizardry required. All right, well, so let's keep moving then to, item number 9, our 2025 Comprehensive Plan Periodic Update, the climate element. Melissa, are you ready to go? Very good.
Gonna borrow the mouse, I think, or maybe I'll just scoot over there,
Oh, yeah, I'll
so
just,
that the mouse isn't, no, you're good. The mouse doesn't like distance, it likes to stay close to its desk. Right. Good evening. For those of you watching the recording later, because I think everyone in the room knows me, I'm Alyssa Jones-Wood. I'm the city's sustainability manager. I am the subject matter expert lead for the climate element, working under the auspices of Brad, the master umbrella man of the comprehensive plan in general. Tonight, we're going to talk about the resilience sub-element, which is a subchapter of the climate element, the climate chapter. Last time I was at the Planning Commission, we talked about the greenhouse gas reduction, but since it's a 60-page document with 201 actions, we figured we'd split it in half. But sorry, the resilience sub-element is the longest part. So here we are here tonight. A lot of the same questions that I asked last time will be the same ones I ask regarding at the goal level, if there's things that you would like changed, or they're wonderful, that's possible too. So we're here to talk about the draft resilience sub-element. There's a great picture of Brad talking to people.
he's probably wearing the same shirt today that he's.
It's likely I was wearing the same shirt that day too. So just to focus, we're going to be focusing on the climate resilience sub-element, and both sub-elements have to have environmental justice incorporated throughout. That is a state requirement and a good thing to do anyway. I gave you an update of our community engagement to date. New things that have happened since then is we had one more meeting with the South Sound Asian and Pacific Islanders Coalition. Dana and I went to the Thurston County Food Bank to table and ask for feedback. We cut up the plan and put the pieces of each policy in a hat and went up to people in their cars and asked them to pick a policy out of the hat, tell us what they thought, because no one wants to read 60 pages. Maybe Planning Commission does, but not everyday people necessarily do. So putting it in bite-sized chunks, we got some good feedback, including realizing that what we had written for some of these actions did not come through. So that we need to clarify language to make sure that our intention is clear, but lots of really great feedback that we got. And next week, the Thurston Climate Action Team is hosting a community assembly that Tumwater staff, Thurston County staff, Lacey and Olympia staff will also be attending, focused on the climate element. That's TCAT is organizing this as an invite only for a lot of the organizations that we as jurisdictions have had trouble building connections with. So this will be a kind of a panel discussion on the climate element, and then some nice long networking sessions so that we can start to build connections and relationships with those organizations that we haven't been able to interact with, where we might have emailed but never got an email back, but this will be our introduction and ability to hopefully build that relationship, that bridge, so that we can incorporate other folks. It was cold the day that Dana and I were at the food bank, but it was great. So just reiterating again, we're talking adaptation today or resilience. They're the same general thing, but climate change, not everything fits in one bucket. Adaptation, examples of that is weatherizing and hardening homes and infrastructure, developing densely in low-risk areas, improving and restoring habitat connectivity, and expanding access to local and culturally significant foods. We actually have some actions specifically about food. That's the last goal of the resilience sub-element, but it's in there. There's a lot of jargon, and I have some nice fat definitions here to introduce you to some of these things, but Adaptation is the process of adjusting to new climate conditions in order to reduce risks to valued assets, and valued assets can 100% include people and should include people. A lot of times, at least where I'm from in South Florida, assets were mostly just buildings, but it's very important that we include people too. Climate resilience, the ongoing process of anticipating, preparing for, and adapting to changes in climate and minimizing negative impacts to our natural systems, infrastructure, and communities. And then a term that comes up in a couple of the actions that was new to me, but I learned it through some of our climate policy advisory team members, passive survivability. Building to ensure that residences will remain a safe temperature for occupants if the power goes out, and that they will overall require less power to keep at a regulated temperature. This can also entail building single-family residences with one room designated to maintain comfortable temperatures, or multifamily residences with a designated common area to serve the same function. Building for passive survivability also reduces demand on local energy infrastructure. So it's having at least one safe haven in your house to go to that might have air conditioning, that you can have if you have a medication fridge, making sure that that's in that room, so that even if your whole house isn't air conditioned, that you have one place that you can relieve the stress on your body of a heat wave. And same thing for a multifamily community, having a community room that has that and has backup power. So passive survivability. Any questions so far?
Going to take some action before you get to the passive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So hard topic, but greenhouse gas emission reduction, what we can do to reduce the worst impacts. We have about 30 years of global warming already baked in today, regardless of what we do in terms of reducing emissions. Not a great thing. I have a snapshot of one of our climate-related resolutions from City Council that was adopting our greenhouse gas reduction targets, which we will be improving and making them more science-based targets. But this was related to the Paris Agreement, which Mayor Kmet many years ago said we're still in, so we're still in, regardless of what happens at the federal level. This is coming from a tool that I've spoken with you all about before called the Climate Inroads simulation tool that I'm super nerdy about and would love to toggle through sometime with you. But at this point, all things remaining steady, the world is facing 3.3 degrees Celsius increase. So 1.5 is like, it's going to be rough, but we can still survive. 2 is lots of people and lots of ecosystems and lots of other animals will die. 3.3, even worse. So we're forecasted to be in the high emission scenario. This is a useful thing to keep in mind because my next slide shows some of the situations that will be in place regarding climate hazards. That is the basis of what we're trying to be resilient against. So this is our climate hazard forecast. This is based on Climate Impacts Washington group. They did this for every county in Washington, and that was part of the Department of Commerce guidance, was to, at minimum, look at this data and look at what our risks were. We are not in the low emission scenario, so ignore those numbers. We are in the high emission scenario as a globe and as a community. So this means that by 2100, which I realize is a long planning horizon, but we've already seen climate disruptions. Average summer temperature between June and August, we're going to have a 9.5 degree increase, give or take. 9.6 more days of summer, of summer maximum temperatures. That's 58.2 more days of hot days that are over 90 degrees by 2100. So where we are pretty temperate right now, we're going to have a lot more days that passive survivability is really important to people, especially people with pre-existing conditions, elders, young folks. It's going to be warmer. Total annual precipitation will increase. It's forecasted to increase intensity of extreme rainfall situations. I don't want to bum you out. We need to definitely do the things in the greenhouse gas reduction chapter, period, as a globe, as a local jurisdiction, anyone and everybody all together now. But we have things that we need to make sure that our community are safe regarding our future. Sea level rise is a little less, it's much less of an issue for us than it is for Olympia, but we will experience it and might interest the your board that it'll mostly impact Historical Park and the old brewery. That when the dam gets removed, that's the area of our city that will be susceptible to sea level rise. I'm glad that it's just that and not homes and people's livelihoods, but parks are important in having that access to space. We've been putting a lot of time and energy for many, many years about that brew tower, so taking that into consideration, that will be impacted by sea level rise. Unfortunately, our logo might look like that in 2100 in real life. Increase in high fire danger days. Not everyone likes pictures, so I grabbed some maps too. This is from Climate En-ROADS. So some other visuals for wildfire danger. We're in 7 to 13 additional wildfire danger days a year by 2100. Have 11 to 33% annual likelihood of a 12-plus month drought by 2100. So different changing conditions. Trees are already having a hard enough time with our droughts that we have in the summer. Anticipate more of that and impacts to agriculture too, and our need for water. Extreme heat days, we talked about that. It's about 50-something days, so it shows up here, 31 to 90. Fun fact, the Climate Impacts Washington, same forecast as what MIT with Climate En-ROADS. So we have two different agencies finding the same results of what is anticipated for our impacts here in Tumwater. That's not very happy stuff. So let's dig into the policies of how we plan on preparing our community to deal with this.
Can I ask you a quick question on your hazard section? I didn't see in here, and maybe, I don't know how to address this, but I would be concerned that at one of the hazards or risks will be social unrest,
Yes.
social upheaval.
And there is a strong correlation between extreme heat and violence and domestic violence and anger. So you can assume that that's going to happen, period, because there will be lots of changes. And I mean, there's a really great and unfortunate example of climate change causing civil unrest in Syria. It's a really great example, unfortunate example of drought impacting farmers not working, not doing farming anymore because it's not possible, moving into cities, cities not being ready for all those folks, people being angry, having less, I mean, oftentimes poverty leads to crime. We can reduce crime by reducing poverty, but unfortunate conditions compounding one another, and we have the situation in Syria started with climate.
Are we addressing that in this section?
Not necessarily. So we're not, I would say that's like a side effect of the climate hazards, but that's something that we should definitely make sure is spoken to, at least in the technical section, which is part 2 of the climate element. But also if there's, I think it would be reasonable to maybe staff emergency services a little higher in the summer during heat waves, not only for heat illnesses, but also for instances of violence.
It just seems like if people are some of our assets, and the community that the people make up, that they would be directly affected by social unrest or upheaval or migrations or what have you. And it seems like it ought to be talked about.
Yeah.
Along with, whatever people come up with as ways to prepare us to be resilient for that.
I think that's great. Thank you. Any other comments in general before we start diving in goal by goal and asking this series of questions to ourselves? And because I'm sharing screen, I can't necessarily see everybody that's online, so feel free to unmute yourself as a way to alert us that you would like to speak. And I'm
I
sure the
think
chair
we're
would
all
recognize
still
you.
just processing everything you just said.
Yeah, sorry, I realized that context was heavy and not positive, but that's why we're trying to make sure that we're doing long-term planning to make our community as safe as we can, considering the conditions that will be dealt with. So I'm asking these questions of the Planning Commission for each set of goals, so just keep this in your mind. Do you have any general or specific comments that you'd like to share under this goal? Are there shifts in action timelines that you'd like to suggest under this goal? Do you foresee any unintended consequences or burdens associated with the policies and or actions under this goal? Do you anticipate anyone in the Tumwater community being left out by any policy and or action under this goal? If so, how should we fix that? Using the icons which show actions being publicly identified priorities. Those are things that we heard from people through our stakeholder engagement. which would or could impact you or the things you care about most, and what do you expect that impact to be? And do you have any additional thoughts that you'd like to share related to this goal and its associated policies and actions? Now, I know you all have the printed handout because you have it online and can be referring to that, so I'm just going to keep this up, I think, but feel free to share thoughts on Goal 9. Mr. Kirkpatrick.
These are small things, but I'm looking at 9.1.1 at the beginning, says we're going to start it in 2028. We're undergrounding right now power lines. Included in the 25 budget is underground the power lines on 79th Street in Tumwater. So we've been doing this for several years. It's been in the plan that when it was opportune to get it done. So, you know, it would appear by reading this like, hey, here's a brand new thing that we're going to do. And we're not going to do it for another 3 years. We have been doing it, and we're doing it right now in our current budget.
Okay. We can remove it since it's already being done. That brings us to 200 actions in the climate element then.
Wouldn't you want to keep it in the plan as something to continue?
Yeah, I would leave it in the plan, but you've got others.
Indicate that it's
just
an
say
ongoing thing.
Okay, leave but shows,
Continue to.
Yeah,
ongoing.
give us credit for it.
Yeah, gosh, we have been working for a long while,
Can do.
even if it's been slow. Go ahead.
Any other comments on?
Sure. Online, it's a little hard to see if you have your hand raised, so just chime in if you have anything to say.
Hey there. I think I just wanted to respond to Commissioner Kirkpatrick. I don't know if you're referring to the development code amendments that we did last year, where we require with new development the undergrounding of facilities. I don't know if this goal or policy applies to all, including existing overhead. So I just wanted to clarify that if this initiative is for all power lines, if that's the is that the intent of this action item?
Is it one of the tabs by any chance, packet?
Elizabeth has the only packet.
Or do you want me to read?
Yes, please, if you would.
All right. The one that Commissioner Kirkpatrick was referring to, 9.1.1, says, identify potential funding sources to bury existing power lines and associated infrastructure, or to make more resilient to climate impacts where burial is not feasible. So this is trying to identify potential funding to do all that.
For existing overhead lines.
Existing power lines and various other
It
infrastructure.
doesn't say all of them, it says those that we
It
can.
doesn't, it just says, yeah, bury them.
No, it doesn't say that we will always do it in the future.
No,
It
it's
really
just,
says that we will do it when we can.
and it also
And
says,
we are doing it. I think that's the more important point.
right, the point that you've made is that we have been trying to do this to some degree already for some years.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to
79th Street
be,
has to do with the maintenance facility for the city of Tumwater, so it maybe had an additional push.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Commissioner? I wonder, do you mean that we should continue as we are, or do you mean that we should change how we're doing things?
I just said that it's not gonna start in 2028, it's ongoing today.
It's just timeline.
Just switch it to ongoing in the period block, and there are several others in there where it says ongoing, so it's
Okay.
not
Ongoing.
blinded.
no. We've been doing it, we think we're making progress, and we need to keep doing it.
So if we can find other sources
If
of
we
funding, we
can-
can do it more.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something we want to
Right.
do.
So, I mean, I guess that calls to mind then, identifying the money is one thing, and then carrying it out if we happen upon some money. So that's implied that you would do that with money you find somewhere, but maybe we should be, maybe somewhere is the action tied to that beyond locating some money. That, there might be other opportunities for that throughout the rest too.
You can go to 202
Yeah.
actions.
Yeah. Just, you know, where the first step was finding money or support or what have it, you know, whatever the resources were, then it's carried out.
Any other comments under goal CL9?
Just to kind of add on what was said, I really love the idea of creating that like action item of, okay, we're gonna find the funding and then we're gonna do it. Especially just given kind of the uncertainty of funding that might be available to us. I know, you know, the state's in like a $12 billion deficit right now and things are going on at the federal level. And so just the unsurety of where we might be getting funds, it just would be really nice to kind of assure people that we're going to go and do what we can with what we can, moving forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Kirkpatrick had another on
It
9.
may just be my sheet, but on 9.3.2, the sentence just sort of ends in the middle. Mandating building practices, that period.
Oh.
It's missing there.
Noted. We'll fix that. Anything else under CL9?
Oh, go ahead.
Go for it. That's why we're here.
9.3.4.
Mhm.
We've got conflicting issues here on trying to reduce the amount of power that's being used and at the same time meet people's needs. And I'm wondering here, is including air conditioning in all residential, in other words, mandating that all residential housing in Tumwater be air conditioned. Is that something that we want to do when we're facing this 3.3 degrees
Mhm.
of temperature? Because surely, when all those air conditioners come on, when I first moved here 30 years ago, I could go through a summer easily without air conditioning. But even today, it's maybe 4 or 5 days out of the summer that I turn the air conditioning on. You build, let's say, half the houses in Tumwater are rental houses. You mandate that all those houses have air conditioning. You know what's going to happen. They're not going to run it in one room. They're not going to run it on that one day that it's hot. They're going to run it all summer long. So, and that's certainly going to kill us from the standpoint of global warming.
Mhm.
So how do we address conflicting issues on that?
I think requiring only the passive survivability level is a good in-between for that, of making sure that there's still at least that one room that has the space for your body to recover, especially in the evening times when the cooling shelters, at least our cooling shelter, isn't available, but is the most important time biologically for your body to cool down, to be able to deal with the heat stress during the day.
And that's mentioned in 4.1, but 3.4 doesn't talk about air conditioning in one room. It says
Right.
And also,
requirements may include installing heat pumps or air conditioning units. So, you know,
it will increase the electricity.
maybe if you put the same limitation of one room, 4.3.4.
I'm curious about the word redevelopment there. Is that like large-scale redevelopment of an area, or are we talking smaller-scale remodeling of a?
I think redevelopment versus remodeling was the intention.
You might want to, somewhere in there, I don't know, maybe it's already specified, like, are we talking a given square footage or acreage? or something
Mhm.
that is a threshold beyond which that would apply, or
Changes
not
use or
apply.
something like that too, yeah.
draw a line somewhere.
The others on 9?
It's on 9. Okay.
Magically changed. Same questions, but CL 10. I think there's 16 total, so. We have a lot of work to do for resilience.
Yeah.
I didn't even put the Gantt chart on this one like I did last time because it's illegible in a PowerPoint slide.
Uh-huh. It's the one about acute events. Any remarks here?
This one's perfect then? Okay.
We can always come back to you, but, okay. If
Move on.
not, let's move on to 11. Just being mindful of
Yep.
time and all.
CL 11.
Okay. Any remarks here on number 11?
Shall I move to 12? Okay. Okay.
12. Go ahead, Commissioner Kirkpatrick.
Just a question, not a comment. On 12.4.1, is this study scheduled or is it underway or?
Please read the action for me.
Conduct a study of existing threats to native fish and aquatic ecosystems. Prioritize which threats are addressed. Because we're gonna start it in 2025, complete it in 2 years.
It's not on the books in the budget yet, but there is a assessment that will start in 2026 for ecosystem service valuation in the city that will include an assessment of existing conditions for critical areas and other ecosystems that would include the quality of habitat for fish and other species. And there is budgeted funding for that starting in 2026.
The start date should be 26.
2026, yeah.
So, that raises an interesting point. Are there, an element here, I don't know if it would show up in the notes or somewhere, would be a note for people whether a particular item is funded yet, or funded to start at a particular time, or funded ongoing, or what have you, or if it's awaiting funding.
It might be most useful to have kind of a supplementary handout relative to the 2025, 2026 budget, because we wouldn't be updating this except for every 10 years. So then it would only have one biennium of notes that would be useful. So we can maybe, we're already planning on some other supplementary handouts for the comp plan, so maybe that would be something that we could show on a biennium basis. These are the projects that have been funded or that were requested and were funded, and this is how we're on track.
Okay, somehow to link up so that folks know something is underway, something, the budget will be starting soon, or we don't have any plans just yet for action.
Yeah. And a lot of the 2025 actions that are related to code changes, we are incorporating into the development code, amendments that will come with the comprehensive plan. So those 2025 actions, don't necessarily need funding at that time, but are incorporated into the scope of work for the consultant working on the climate element.
And would it be fair for all of these, I guess, to assume that if it's not noted somehow that it's budgeted, that it is not yet funded?
I think it's safe to assume that most are not yet funded.
Okay.
With many of these, it's going to be dependent on what kind of programs, especially that are funded by the Climate Commitment Act through the state. And I don't know if certain things that we have funding for this year will be available next year, or if changes will be made because of federal pass-through funds. So it's hard to anticipate funding at this time.
Maybe I missed it, but and you said it at the outset, but it might be good to just say that, you know, most of these are not yet budgeted. Most of these aren't yet funded. Caveat, caveat, caveat. Okay. Still to be acted upon, which is good. Okay.
Any other comments on CL 12?
I think my biggest comment for this one is I think it kind of has come up for me in other places, but it really stood out about how for this, I just kept thinking about how a lot of these things we can't do alone, right? Or like if we tried to do them by ourselves, the impact would be very, very small. And so just really the emphasis on that collaboration with our partners, whether it be, you know, other cities or the state or tribes or whoever, to really make this as powerful as it can be. You know, because I think a lot of this stuff, they're really great goals, but I don't see us being successful in them if we don't have that partnership with other people because we just can't control, you know, maybe we're protecting our part of something, but then another place isn't protecting their part, or you know how, you know, something like that, and how just connected it all is. Just really stood out to me for this one.
Solid point. Thank you. Water doesn't respect borders.
Other comments on 12, goal 12? Commissioner Kirkpatrick.
13.5 says identify and implement strategies for reducing residential development, wildland urban interface. I understand that a lot of these are being pushed off into the future because we're waiting for our concern that we really didn't like what we saw them suggest for the city of Tumwater. We're hoping that will change, and we're allowing some time for it to change. But at least the wording of 13.5 seems to me something that we ought to be doing right now. Somebody comes in and wants to develop in an area which is a wildland interface. We should be on top of it.
I think the issue is that the map is not yet available. We had the map that was provided previously that was not great.
Maps are fine. Tree lines are intimately evident from the air. You can see where the tree line is. You can see where the forests are. And if somebody starts building a housing development in the woods, I would hope the city would get involved. And they can't get involved unless they started to study it. They don't need this map to do that. The map just mandates that they do it.
We actually probably should have the data, however that's going into those mapping, to actually create a, I want to say, a usable map for these kinds of things. Quick update, the committee that's meeting, the steering committee that's developing the mapping is going to start meeting next week. I'm part of that steering committee on the state level as the local rep, so more people learn to hate me. But I think it's important that we don't jump the gun yet on dealing with this issue. One, because if we go by sort of the mapping that was done before, that's 2/3 of the city.
That's just, where is it going to be done? What are we going to do? We could be working on that now.
Yeah, and I think
And that's what this talked about, strategies.
right, and that falls, I think, more on the city has the capability right now of adopting the Wildland Urban Interface Code as is. It's allowed for under state law. It's an option. The issue is the mapping or where it applies hasn't been decided upon. And that's a very key component
Is that sorry to interrupt, is that because the map becomes a legal document and?
It effectively becomes a regulatory document, because it says, within this area, you follow these rules.
Uh-huh.
And the DNR mapping that was there before was sort of this looks like a good idea map.
Presence, absence of vegetation.
Yeah, but it didn't include a lot of other factors like type of vegetation, area of the state we're talking about. The coast of Washington is different from Spokane. History of fires, there's a lot of other things that filter into those maps that make them much more usable and relevant. And so I'm a little hesitant. I think the 2030 is probably okay. I think it could be done a little bit sooner, but I don't think it's something necessarily that we're ready to do now.
And I think that it would not be bad for us to beat some of these timelines. The timelines, the period is just our best guess at when we think that we'll be able to get to these items, or when we think that they might sequentially work. There's some from the greenhouse gas development, for instance, that one regulation that then informs expansion 2 years later, that informs an expansion 2 years later. But if something changes, then it might take 4 years, or it might be able to be done at the same time. It's hard to tell the future for the 201 actions, but we could beat that timeline.
Yeah,
I'd rather beat it than be late and upset folks.
the other component to this, Terry, is obviously the discussions we'll be having later this year about the urban forestry side. But there is a cost element to adopting the wildland urban interface because of the level of protections to the structure itself that have to be included while constructing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty substantial cost issue. So we have to be, I'm not ready to rush into something to deal with one potential issue and then cause a bigger issue unintentionally. So we don't, this isn't we don't get to make the best decision or the most perfect decision every time. This is what's the best balance that we can
What
come
can we live with?
But I did write down, move up timeline.
Kind of in that regard, the whole overarching goal statement 413 starts with zoning and development decision support compact, blah, blah, blah. Is that the word we want when we are awaiting some other data and other legal kind of groundwork, like the map?
I don't think it creates an issue. Our city attorney will be reviewing all this and.
Yep. It's one of those words that, seems like,
There has been a back and forth between some members of the council and on, do we encourage, do we ensure, and so what weight does encourage give, if any?
yeah. I'm all for really, strong, clear language and, having the city, put its marker in the ground about what it's intending to do, but I'm also mindful that there's potential jeopardy.
Correct.
So, yeah. Other things on goal 13. Okay. We're almost there, folks.
Yeah.
14.
16 is the one with food.
That's fun.
Yeah. And we eat, no.
Yeah. Okay, 14. Another insurer, but. I like this one.
That's fine. Oh, yes, of course you do. conversations.
Get it together. Yep.
We've gotten interesting feedback on the don't snow plow the snow right into the bike lane concept.
Yes.
Positive and negative feedback on that.
Little bit of a, where else you gonna put it?
Yes, as a bicyclist. I really would like to be able to bike when I want to. Any feedback on 14? Move to 15.
Water quality. Yes, Commissioner Kirkpatrick.
15.5 says assess current and projected future water demand for water storage. I believe we're not already.
We do already do it, but it may not be in the comp plan.
So, we said we're not gonna start it until 2030. What it says in the plan.
We'll show that it's ongoing. We do that currently. We can't approve water accounts if we don't do that. Thank you for catching that it needs to be ongoing. Becomes a blur over time.
There are no hands.
All right.
Home stretch.
Okay, 16.
Commissioner Kirkpatrick. Oh, go ahead. Did I go too fast?
I know, I kind of want to read this.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm reviewing.
I'll read the 16 because it's short and
Covers 15 and 16, and it's just a comment. In 15, you use the word lobby. You use the word advocate for statewide regulation. I like the second one better. Realize we all do lobby, but it has legal implications, so advocating for statewide regulations is good in 15.1.5, and it probably would be better than lobby in 15.2.5, 15.2.6.
Would it maybe be worthwhile to do a search through the chapter and anytime we say lobby, to give it a
double check.
good.
At least scrutinize it and see. You wouldn't want to change it to advocate if you meant the lawyer.
yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yes. No, that it happens. My
Happens, yes.
husband wrote a book. This is not important, but I'm going to share it anyway. Wrote a book on adapting to 6 feet of sea level rise in South Florida, salty urbanism. And his editor changed every further to farther, and that did not work.
Oh, no.
So replace all doesn't work. You got to check it.
You'll need to
Yeah, you got to find that.
humanize on there.
Did I see Commissioner Staff? You were unmuted.
Yes.
I was just gonna say, it only says lobby twice in the document, so you're okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Then 15.
Virtual. You can just do Control F right there. Thank you. And I'm just going to read the goal 16 because Rebecca is still here with us. Expand local food justice to address climate impacts and increase access to nourishing, affordable, culturally appropriate, and climate-friendly foods while expanding local use of composting. And then we have 2 additional goals or policies. Improve local food justice through collaboration, education, and advocacy, and increase composting in urban agriculture and private residences, and then smaller actions to do those. And also expand consistent access to food for Tumwater community members. There's more context in there, but I don't want to read all of it. Any edits or suggested changes or adoration for anything in CL 16? I'm not fishing. Fish is a culturally appropriate.
Seen any?
Putting this up here for the public that watched the recording, that if you would like to provide any additional comments, you can reach out to Brad or many of us through the comp plan at ci.tumwater.wa.us website, and that we have this version, and we will have additional updated versions of the second draft of the climate element, all posted on the city's periodic comprehensive plan update webpage. Check that out regularly. We're updating it fairly regularly. And I just had questions slide
amazing solar panels on the back of City Hall.
We've been doing it since before they were super, super efficient, and we're cool.
Right. Good job, Alyssa. Any other remarks, specific or general, on the climate element work, resilience?
Okay, can I mention the user guides? Is it too early?
User guides.
The handouts for the different.
Oh, it's a goal.
I will note one thing that I'm haunted by, that is encouraging us to do some additional ways of reaching out to share with folks how the comp plan may benefit them individually. When we were at the food bank, this is more, well, it's for both elements. A gentleman was pulling out some elements, some of the policies out of my hat, and they were all related to buildings and energy. And like, that's great, but I live in an RV. None of your actions, I bet, benefit me. So we're taking a look through the plan to make sure that folks that we might not have considered, but are still very much part of our community, that there are benefits to them in the plan, and that we maybe figure out a way to show different folks how the plan, the whole comp plan, can benefit them and improve their life, because that's the intent, is to have our 20-year plan for how we're going to accommodate all these things and make sure that we're compliant with all state laws. But I think overarching thing for all of it is that we do want to improve the quality of life for our residents, current and future. So.
And we want everyone to be able to see themselves in the plan. And if it's a good litmus test or a way, almost like Rebecca did, to say, are we missing groups? Are we missing people? So I'm hoping to develop a list of user groups and then pass that around first and get some information about whether we're missing a group even. So working on that right as soon as I get the transportation plan, transportation tour package ready.
Well, as a very quick follow-up on the ordinance to read, Lisa, our administrator, asked that I make sure that I ask the question for all the planning commissioners of, what do you think? Is it acceptable? Do you have reservations? All those kinds of things, because she would like me to convey that back to the council.
You want us to talk about it like?
Asking the question.
I will.
I didn't grasp the question.
I guess the council, or at least our city administrator, is asking the commission's input on the question of reducing the size, the numbers of people serving on the commission.
Whether it's acceptable, not acceptable, concerns, all those kinds of things. With the idea that then I would let the council know what the planning commissioner's thoughts are on this.
Yes, I would say, thanks for asking. That's nice. It affects us to some degree. I would also, I think we can make it work. The beauty of having more people on the commission is that it's easier to get more representation of, you know, the blind spots that we sometimes don't even think about. But having so many people on, it's hard to keep it filled too. So I'm sure we can make it work, whatever they decide. But I would say I don't think you'd really want to go much lower than 7, for sure. I don't know. I'm sure there are other considerations too.
It seems like we are at present time having other, I won't call them planning groups, but you're having other committees that didn't exist 2 years ago. So there are other opportunities for people to get involved, and there are even more of them suggested in some of these actions.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to have 8 committees where we used to have 4, then it makes sense you're going to have to find that many people to volunteer. So maybe you want to cut back so that those other 2 people are available to work somewhere else.
Other thoughts?
So how many are on the tree board?
Looks like Commissioner Staff is
So maybe that's the
unmuted.
magic number.
Go ahead.
I would agree that 7 seems more reasonable than 9, since we can't seem to fill the 9 seats to begin with. I do agree with making sure we have a diverse group. I think that is very important, and that's something to keep in mind if we do get up towards that number 7 slot, making sure that we have done our due diligence to fill it with somebody that is in a community that needs this voice potentially.
Yeah, I agree. I think 7 makes a lot of sense, but I just think that then it means we need to be extra careful about, you know, that we get all that representation that we need on the commission, and that, if we're consistently at 7, for whatever reason, then maybe we would want to think again about allowing more people to be on. But I agree, it doesn't seem, like right now we're 5 and we have 9 seats, so we're like half. So it doesn't make sense to have a bunch of vacant seats and have that kind of perception. But definitely want to keep it as open to, as we can, of if people want to join or have the experience, that we allow them to do that. But within reason too, because I do think that with 7, in a way, it does provide maybe a little actually more representation, because I think it would give us each a little bit more opportunity to speak, or to be able to have some of this dialogue with just the fewer amounts of us. I think we would just need to really make sure that if there are those diverse viewpoints or whatever, that we are bringing them in from the outside, or that we have those in the discussion.
Thank you, that was very helpful.
All right. Any other remarks, Brad? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Our next meeting again is going to be the joint meeting with the City Council, a field trip, and it'll be about the transportation plan. And it will be on the 25th, but at 5 p.m. Hopefully everybody can make it. I'm assuming there's buses, or that's to be worked out, whatever.
We will have 2 city park vans that are brightly
Right.
labeled.
Okay, very good.
Be allowed to leave the city like we did last time.
We will meet at the Advocate of the City Hall, the lobby of the City Hall.
That was great.
All right, folks. Any further discussion or a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Great, that was Commissioner Edwards moving and Commissioner Staff seconding that we adjourn tonight. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, sounds unanimous. Good night, everybody. Great job, everybody.
Good night.
Fun.
Good night.